Farm Bureau. I'm Sheridan, and I am also from Kansas Farm Bureau, and I will be serving as your moderator. At this time, out of respect for the competitors, please turn off your cell phones and all other electronic devices. Also, please keep distractions as minimal as possible for full concentration by the competitors. In the event of continual distractions, it may be necessary, as moderator, to ask you to leave. Serving as timekeeper for this round is Greg of Kansas Farm Bureau. Competitors' cumulative rankings from rounds 1 and 2 that were held at the beginning of May determined the final 4 competitors who will be competing in the final round today. These top 4 competitors have shown their knowledge and ability to articulate and collaborate on a variety of agricultural issues. The judges, timekeeper, and competitors have been briefed as to the rules of the competition. We appreciate all of you taking the time to attend this competition. Your support is appreciated by the competitors. Competitors, please take your places up front. Now that all competitors have been seated, writing is allowed. The competitors will direct their general discussion toward each other rather than the audience. In my role as moderator, I will not attempt to control or direct this discussion. Remember, the discussion is meant to resemble a committee meeting with the end goal of determining possible solutions to the question at hand. This is not a panel discussion with point, counterpoint, and an active moderator. As such, I will not intervene unless disparaging or inappropriate remarks are made. With that in mind, the burden is on the competitors to moderate themselves and conduct themselves in a cooperative and congenial manner. The question for this round is, in 2020, local butcher shops reached their maximum capacity. With reported wait times of over a year in some locations, this disrupted the availability of locally sourced meat and local protein markets. These factors, accompanied by the major packing plant closings that caused the disruptions, shined light on gaps we have in meat processing infrastructure. What are ways that infrastructure can be adjusted to mitigate risks to consumers and help rural communities? The competitors for this round are Jayce Garcia, Noah Goss, Emma Albers, and Jory Ratzlaff. We will begin this discussion with 30-second opening statements from each competitor. Following the opening statements will be 15 minutes of open discussion, followed by 1 minute of quiet time for the competitors to prepare their 1-minute closing statements. Official time is kept by the timekeeper. Competitors, in voluntary order, make your 30-second opening statements. Please stand and direct your opening statements to the audience. The timer will indicate when your 30 seconds have elapsed by holding up a red card. You may begin.
Good morning. My name is Noah Goss, and I am from the Ellsworth FFA chapter. Recently, I have firsthand experienced the struggles of the packing plant issue. My family and I show pigs, and I had to drive over 250 miles to find a packing plant. COVID highlighted these issues in the industry, and it is up to us as agriculturalists and consumers to solve these issues. I look forward to discussing with each of you to find ways that we can make a difference in agriculture and rural America.
I'm Jory with the Canton-Galva FFA chapter, and I believe stress is already being relieved from local businesses as major corporations begin to reopen. So the question is not how can we currently solve the situation, but how can we prevent the situation from ever happening in the future? I plan to highlight options such as bringing more inspectors into the workforce, or how an antitrust legislation can delegate the resources of major packing industries. I look forward to the discussion we plan on having today. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Emma Albers of the Doniphan West FFA chapter. I personally have been affected by this packing plant issue in my local community, and I know that the easiest way, and my opinion, the best way to solve this is supporting local. Supporting local butcher shops and packing plants means supporting local farmers and ranchers. I look forward to discussing this with each of you and hopefully coming up with a solution to this very common problem.
It is no doubt that in 2020, COVID took the world by storm. Meat packing facilities began shutting down due to the spread of COVID. Meat processors began having struggles in these times. But during this, we did find some hope. We began supporting small businesses, trying to keep them alive. And from here, I believe that in this group, we can come up with ideas and things such as the farm-to-table movement to make it more common to support our local businesses.
You have heard the opening statements. The competitors may now proceed with the discussion. Competitors, please direct your discussion to your fellow panel members.
Emma, I really like your idea of how we can personally support local businesses, whether that be from the packing plant side or any side in the industry. I know personally that we can use grants and things like that to have these small businesses have opportunities to grow back and come back from COVID. Can you elaborate more on what are some ways that you think we can help solve this issue?
So to touch on, like you said, grants, I think that is a great way to get some new packing plants going in local communities. I know money is always a factor in things, and some of these grants that are offered would be a great way to start. During COVID, there's actually a local plant in my community that was able to start, which, I mean, that's something that doesn't happen very often, especially during COVID-19, but because of these grants, Diamond C Food Company of Atchison was able to start their business and has been flourishing because so many people were able to take their livestock there to be butchered and packed. And going back to supporting local businesses also means supporting local farmers and ranchers. And as all of you know, supporting farmers help farmers, agriculturalists help agriculturalists, and with that, that's how we keep our industry going. So I think we just need to still support local, bring our livestock to the local plants, buy our meat and our processed foods from those local businesses, and just keep it in the community.
If I had going off of what you had said, Emma, working with farmers is kind of a key thing in this. As I had said, the farm-to-table movement is something that we are seeing happen more and more in restaurants and things like that. And so being able to work with them and getting a better understanding of working more local with those processing plants or even like those new ones like you had said, working with them as far as grants, and that's what we had seen in those COVID times. Grants came about and they were a big thing for everyone that needed it. They helped supply people with checks that were in these industries that struggled. And so working with that and the farm-to-table movement with those farmers is definitely a big thing, I feel, for this topic.
If I may touch on how grants can affect local businesses, is the main problems that local businesses are seeing is that they don't have enough storage. And so having a grant means that they are able to go out and purchase maybe another building or another site where they can storage. And you're touching on a farm-to-table movement, and something that I've seen in my local meat packing local business is that he actually purchased a store right next to it. So you know, he's buying in meat and then he's processing it, but he's then using the store that he's bought to actually sell his own product to make himself more available to customers. And something that helped him be able to purchase that store right next to him was a grant. And so just seeing how that can actually, you know, really tie into the farm-to-table movement that you were mentioning is an incredibly valuable point to make.
And I believe that's such a good thing to try and focus on, as I said, just because whenever you have them starting out, it is rather hard. When looking at new businesses, they fail within the first year pretty quickly. And so if we can have those grants to support them and bring in those local farmers to help with the farm to table, then the people also get a better understanding of the meats that they're getting. And it's not only that, but it's also more healthier typically, and they get a better understanding of everything.
Yeah, Jayce, touching on something that you said, Emma and Jory have all mentioned, if we look at statistics from 1977, the top 4 beef packing companies only owned 25% of the industry. Today, they own 86. We are looking at issues that, what if another outbreak happens? What if those 4 packing plants aren't able to sustain the industry? I think that's something that's going to be very valuable to us to discuss off of the points that we've already touched on, is how can we make these grants available and help support and make the number of the small and local businesses and local packers increase, so that in the situation that a packing plant does shut down, that we have the local and the small businesses to back up and take on those animals.
And something that I think should really be emphasized is these students that are coming right out of college that are looking to pursue in this industry, maybe inspire them to work at a local business and just the local ones in the community rather than a large company such as Tyson, for example. It'd be better to work at a local company because that brings in more workers and also brings in more help for those local businesses. I also wanted to touch real quick on what you said in your opening statement about inspectors. I know that is a big problem. We cannot find enough inspectors to work in packing plants. How can we get inspectors to come into these local packing plants and be able to have that help their businesses?
I feel that kind of goes back to just the fact of what we're talking about in this topic is wanting to mitigate that risk of something happening, of possibly another outbreak or anything like that. So looking at it, we've seen the shock that this caused. So we were able to learn from it. So now we are able to expand on that and go and understand that if something were to happen, we may have to go to different suppliers for everything like that, or maybe even understand that in the case of something like another pandemic, we have to adjust our personal systems as far as sick days or anything like that for any meat packing facility, as we had seen that they were shutting down in mass numbers due to COVID. And them working so close to each other, it is important that they upkeep on tests and everything like that, health, and making sure that their workers are healthy, making sure the environment is clean, and that they are focusing entirely on the safety of their workers and their plant.
Going off of that, just after you talked about the inspectors and what I said in my opening statement, I think that's a great way to be able to relieve stress off of local businesses to ensure that they're able to keep running in a situation such as COVID-19. So if you're able to bring in more inspectors into the workforce, you're speeding up the process in which it takes to actually process meat. And so one way that we can encourage inspectors to go into the meat forces, not only by making some agricultural class mandatory, but by having a specialized agricultural class and making it easier to be able to get a industry-recognized license for inspecting through a class such like that you can either take in high school or college. And that definitely supports college or high school kids that need some cash to go into the meat packing industry as an inspector.
Jory, I really like the point of you talking about how those grants increase storage. And you also mentioned about the inspectors making sure we have a clean and safe environment. Something that I've looked into is with those grants, having expansions in packing plants. Meat packing, meat processing is a very labor-intensive job. It requires quite a few workers working in close proximity to each other. So providing these grants for that expansion would allow workers to properly social distance. So in the case of an outbreak of a disease, a pandemic, we wouldn't have to worry about the whole packing plant shutting down. Say one worker tested positive for coronavirus, that entire plant has to shut down because all those workers are in such close contact. Increasing the expansion would allow only that one person to leave and everyone else would be able to continue with their jobs.
Kind of going back to what Jory had said, I feel that is a big thing, educating these people on these inspections and everything else. As we are FFA, it is big that we lead these people. We have a voice, we have mass in numbers, so we are able to bring up newer generations to teach them these things, or even work with older generations to inform them on these. I believe that education is a big part in this, making sure that they understand how the virus works if something were to come about again, or preparing for something later.
I'm really glad you brought that up with how us as FFA members, how can we help now? Of course, when we grow into our adulthood and as we start our careers, we can definitely help more in that way. But as FFA members, as high schoolers, what can we do right now? And I think something that we can definitely do to inspire students to maybe look into the meat industry is contests such as meat judging, or maybe just pushing students to try something new, not just with meat, but I know that's what we're covering here, but with all aspects of things. That inspires students to pursue careers in that, gets them to go to college for that, and we'll have more people in the workforce for that. So then that will, it's just all a chain reaction. And with that, then wait times will be shorter because there are more workers that are able to help in these local packing plants. And I think that's just something we really need to inspire others to do, that there are lots of job opportunities in this field, and that will greatly help the meat industry.
So if I may, we've definitely discussed a lot about how we can help relieve stress and support our local businesses, not only using grants to increase to help them expand, but by making it available to students to be able to pursue a career much more easily within the meatpacking industry. But I think it's important that we touch also on those major meatpacking industries that originally closed down. So they are beginning to open back up, and it's obviously already having an effect on local businesses. Stress has already been relieved, and their wait times are now much shorter than they were peak pandemic. And so, but I think one of the large reasons that those businesses had to close down is because of their size, right? And obviously, as you said, they own a very vast majority of the meatpacking industry. So when talking about these businesses, I think it's important to bring up antitrust legislation. So what that would do is it would not necessarily break up these corporations, but it would delegate the resources of them to other more, instead of having just one large packing plant for Tyson, they'd have multiple spread across the nation. So therefore limiting the amount of workers that they had in a certain area.
Kind of going off of what you had said, Jory, like working with them, I feel is very important. You were right on that. Like I said, we had that shock where we were able to learn from that. And as of 2020, I believe it was an estimated 13.6 million took an impact on the beef slaughter industry. So we've seen how deadly this can be for something like that. Having them shut down is horrible for us. We saw a rise in meat prices of about 10% or more. And so we have to understand that we have to be prepared for something more and something possibly coming.
Touching off of what you have said, everyone has said, I think if you're not aware, there was a large plant that burned down in southwest Kansas a few years ago, and that created quite a few issues just in our state. Touching off of Jory's antitrust legislation, spreading those out is going to be a huge, that's going to be a huge relief for those huge companies so that they will be able to spread out. Another thing that Jory, you mentioned how we can help the bigger packing plants. They are great. We need them to stay alive in the agriculture industry. One thing that we can do is to decrease the stigma around meat processing. I think that it's quite a big issue why we may be seeing so few people wanting to go into that industry is because of the people who are uneducated about what actually happens. Something that we can do as consumers and FFA students is educate them and host tours in meatpacking plants, host more contests, things that will get people interested in going into that industry, and that's going to help our small local plants and the large plants as well.
And I feel that is a very big thing, as I said, education, like educating the younger generations as well as the newer generations, bringing them up the same way that you guys have stated, involving them in more events and other school type of opportunities is really good. Bringing them in and working with them on that is super important.
I really agree with what you said. Touching back on what you said about opening maybe other plants, not only does that help with the bigger packing plants of spreading things out, but that also brings more employment opportunities to people in that area. Instead of driving who knows how many hours to the one big packing plant, if we have smaller locations across the United States, that provides so many new employment opportunities. And with that also means more work. More work means more things get done.
And I believe the idea behind grants as far as expanding, as Noah has stated, expanding for those packing plants to have less liability for those people not being as close, working, farther apart for safety reasons and as far as liability in the workplace, as you had said before, it is a very laborious job, and so they have to be ready to be there. So having that, it spreads them out and offers it a chance to be a lot simpler and easier and safer.
And after COVID-19, I know that we still have lots to learn. I mean, there's still some stuff about the pandemic you and I just don't understand, but I know we have learned a lot. How if we were hit with another pandemic, let's say 10 years down the road, we have gone through COVID-19, we have seen the procedures with that, and I believe packing plants have learned from that. Although there are lots of other health concerns and many things they can learn, I believe that is something that they have definitely touched on, and they are definitely making rules and they have implemented into their companies because they don't want that to happen again and affect their businesses so greatly like it did during 2020.
And that's kind of what I was wanting to go on before, is having a contingency plan to ensure that we are prepared for things like this. We're able to continue working in what is essentially a scary time that we had experienced, because we need that. Those are essential to us. What do you think, Jory?
You know, you guys have touched a lot on in the past couple minutes now. I just wanted to tie it back into something that Noah was talking about, and how we need to not only encourage employment within local businesses, but if we were to delegate the resources of larger corporations across the nation, we should also encourage employment in there. And I think that could have something to do with what other major corporations have done, not they're separated from the bean industry, is that they offer you know, an internship, a schooling within their own corporation to encourage people to come join their corporation and take a look at what's going on. Do you have something to state?
Jory, yeah, thank you. I really like the comments that you have made about that. Another thing that I kind of want to touch on is if we look aside from the packing and the meat processing industry, many of us.
Time has been called. Please prepare your closing statements. I ask that the audience remain silent for 1 minute to aid the competitors in their preparation. Please put down your pens, and in voluntary order, please stand and give your 1 minute closing statement.
I love the discussion we've had here today, and I think we've talked about how important it is to support your local businesses and how grants and other such things can really help them expand their own business, right? But I think education and supporting the workforce is also incredibly important. Having what would be a specialized class to be able to provide an industry-recognized inspection permit for those looking for work would provide a reliever of stress for these local businesses. But I think one of the most important things that we've talked about is the spreading out of the delegation of major corporations across a nation, so that there's not only more opportunity, there's more availability to go into the workforce, and it's decreasing the stress on those major corporations. If something else were to happen, they have much more leeway in case of shutting down and other such things. So I think it's incredibly important that we delegate our resources and our workforce within the meatpacking industry.
Wait times have greatly affected not only farmers and ranchers, but also the general population that need their beef, pork, and other meats. We have learned from COVID-19 and how to not have this happen again, and we have discussed this here together today with grants, supporting local businesses and also large businesses, and expansion of large corporations. I just really wanted to say that ag helps ag. Whether we support the big plants or the local plants, we need to support agriculture. And with that, we are continually learning. I wish we had more than 15 minutes to discuss this. This is a very broad topic, and I think if the more we talked about it, the more solutions we can maybe come up with. But I believe we have come up with a lot today, and hopefully it's something we could think about in the future and maybe bring to our own communities at home and to solve this problem.
Though this issue has been resolved and it's on an increasing slope, I think that there are some major takeaways and learning points that we as agriculturalists can use. We need to work together to create solutions for this issue so that in the future years, if there were something to happen, we can prevent the shutdowns and the major issues for the Americans. I think that we created some valuable solutions, and one thing that I am going to encourage us and everyone to do is take this back to your communities, your hometowns, and encourage them to speak up and let their voices be heard so that we can continue to make a difference. Thank you, Jayce, Emma, and Jory for our conversation, and I look forward to seeing you guys in years to come.
I believe that in this discussion, we did have some really great ideas. From Jory's thoughts on educating the younger generation or even the newer generation, bringing them in, to Emma's thoughts as far as safety, expanding, and Noah wanting to expand with grants, expand those packing plants. It is very good. I believe that we did come up with some really good solutions here, and I believe that us as a whole, FFA, or even just us, we have the possibility, we have the ability to expand out there and do far more, do great things for what is to come. Bringing up the younger generation, as we have here, we are able to reach out there, and I believe that we have the ability to just make things better and stop something like we had experienced from COVID happening.
Let's show these competitors our appreciation for a job well done.